Hey SCA students, what's up? Okay, so today, marker rendering. What we're gonna do is we're gonna do the marker rendering. We're gonna use an arm, but you can use any object uh, or animal even, or human if you want. I'm gonna do the human arm. Um, it's gonna be a different technique than you're used to when you're using markers. You can even do it with crayons, but markers is probably best. So this is more of a sketchier technique, all right? And what we're gonna do, color doesn't matter. It's really all about value and following form, okay? So that's what we're gonna work on today. All right, so we're rolling. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we have to pick a light source. So I'm gonna start a light source from this way here. Okay, so the light source is gonna come down into here. And when you do this, you start with the lightest markers first. Okay, it's just like doing watercolor painting, because really with a marker, that's what you're doing. You're doing watercolor, except it comes in a tube and it's got a felt tip. So with this light, this is a C3 cool gray. And again, color doesn't matter, but value does, the light and darkness. So you go with one of your lightest markers, and I'm just going to kind of give an idea, a little tiny circle of where the light is going to be the brightest. I'm going to try the best of my ability to not put too much color in there. Down below, it's going to be a little lighter on this arm. And we're going to do kind of a blue arm. So once I get this now, watch this. I'm staying inside the arm as much as I can, but inside this, it's very sketchy. And I'm not worried, and I don't want to be coloring like this. Okay, it's all sketchy. I'm just going to kind of circle, and I'm following the form. That's the most important part, the roundness of these fingers. And so I want to sketch around them, and I feel around that knuckle of the thumb as I'm doing this. That's what this lesson is kind of about, is you feel around the form. So if you notice the way my pen is moving, I'm going around the tube of that arm, and there's that muscle there. So I'm going around this tube here. Now, if this was a garden hose, I would do the same thing. I would just go around that hose. So I'm thinking of the form. There's a muscle here, and I'm going around that form. And I'm leaving a lot of white space, you'll notice. So I'm just getting the feel for this, and there's a big tube here in the way the light's coming down, going into the form that comes into the, tucks into the forearm like that. And then there's another muscle here, and a triceps coming up into here. And then we have the shoulder, and the shoulder drops down. So I just get this as a lay-in. Now from here, I go to my next value, which is a step darker, but it's going to be a lighter color. It's going to be a blue. And it's a light blue, but the value's a little darker. And I do the same process. I cover a little more color territory, but I'm still going around those forms. Thinking about the roundness of that finger and the way the light is hitting it. So the top side's going to be lighter, right? Where this knuckle is next to this finger here, right in that little separation, there's going to be a little darker, right? So it's going to have the dark, and then I have the light side of that finger. Now that helps describe that form. As I pull away from the light, I can add a little more color. But once again, around the knuckles, and then I start to sketch this. But now, as it's coming away from the light, I'm going to put a little bit more marker in here. It's still real sketchy, and I'm going around this form. As I come down into this muscle here, it's a little less because I want it to be a little lighter in terms of overall color. So I have a little more white showing through. Same thing here. I will put a little bit of darkness on the upper edge because that's where the skin tone is going to change. It's still catching some light. But I'm going to darken up that skin tone a little. And then right in here, I'm going to go a little bit lighter, except underneath here where that shadow is. And notice, everything is really kind of loosely sketched in. Okay? So once I've done this, now I'm going, yeah, that's pretty right. It got a feel of roundness and form to it. There are lights here and here where the light is hitting it, and I have a little bit of color happening. Now I'm going to go into a darker color. And I am going to actually go into a next darker blue. In this case, it actually says light blue, but watch this. So now, you can see the transition. That's a much darker value. So now I have to be a little more judicious in how I use this, and I'm really sticking to some of the shadow areas, but I'm still sketchy. I'm going to come in here, come around this form as it's catching the light. This is a valley where the light is here and then it dips down. If you look in between your hands, there's a little valley in here. So I need to get a little bit of darkness down in that valley, and then that'll create a light spot on that upper knuckle. Sketch through this. I'm not going to come into here too much because I want this area to be a little lighter. I'll come back with a different tone in a little bit, but for right now, I just want to get the basics. And now here, I'm going to put a little of that core shadow on this tube. Again, sketchy, sketchy, sketchy. Keep it kind of loose. Changing tone just a little bit. In that little shadow area where the bicep starts to come around into the tricep, I'm going to maybe darken that tone a little bit. Again, these could be browns, they could be pinks, flesh tones. Right now I'm working with blue, kind of monochromatic a little bit. All right, so now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to switch gears. And I'm actually going to go back into it with my gray again. This is that lighter gray. And I'm going to start sculpting a little bit more around, and I'm going to take out some more of that white, except for where the highlight area is. Like around the knuckle, I'm going to put a little more shadow. Down in here, I'm going to deepen this with a little of that gray or lighter tone, depending upon what. And so instead of a full-on white, now I'm going to take this tone and make it into a smaller white. Same thing with the bicep. I'm going to come up into here. I'm going to take out some of that white with my tone. Come back in through here. Now what I will do is I will go back in again with that light blue. And when I do a second pass, I can use this side, I guess, of that lighter blue. Oh, that's not the one I wanted. That one's too dark. It's this one. This is the one that we started with, the first color we did. And I'm going to come back in and do the same thing that I did with the grays, but I'm really going to be careful not to cover any of those white areas that are my highlights for the light. But I do want to get some more tone in here, and that'll help bring that around. Again, super sketchy. Okay, but staying within my lines. Just deepening some of these crevices. And you can almost think of this arm or whatever you're working with as a landscape. So this could be peaks and valleys. Okay, so I'm going down deep into the backside of this mountainside right here, and then deep into this mountainside, and then here's a valley. So I'm going to come into it. So when you're working it, even though it's an arm, I can treat it like it's a landscape. We pull through that. Now the final thing we can do with this, or one of the final things, is now I'm going to go to one of my darker tones. This is a darker gray. This is a number 5 gray. And I'm going to use this to really get into some of these valleys and just pull out some shadow areas in between those knuckles and fingers, maybe on some dark side core shadows. This turns all the way around into here, so I probably want to maybe put a little bit more shadow into here, a little more shadow on the back side of this muscle, and kind of on the backside edge. Tends to really make it feel round. That's the object of this lesson, is using sketching markers, but really make your sketch have a real round feeling, and a loose feeling though at the same time, because it's really loosely done. Now when we pull away, let me put this in a little bit. We're just about finished with this. Probably tuck this down into here a little bit, add a little more tension. And there you have it, guys. So you can try with, I mean, watch how fast. If I did a ball, okay, so that is not a ball yet, right? That's just a shape, that's a circle. But as soon as I add a couple of things here, I'm gonna go here. As soon as I add a shadow line, that becomes less of a ball, less of a circle and more of a ball. When I put a core shadow in, here's a light source, and I just lightly sketch this in. I'm not doing anything crazy, super light and super sketchy. But now I'm putting a light source on it. I'm going to put a little bit of a core shadow here. I'm going to have a little bit of a reflected light on this side here. And then I'm going to put this darker core. I'll use blue. I'm going to put this core in here. Then I go back in with my grays. Loose, super, super loose. Take this into another one. And then now your simple circle, using very loose, sketchy style, can get a certain three-dimensionality to it. I take that out. As the shadow goes away from the ball, of course, it gets a little bit lighter. There you go. All right. And that's your lesson for today. Give it a shot. Try it with different objects, maybe even humans or body parts or something like that. But be really loose with your sketches inside the form. Try to stay, You know, don't get so crazy that you're going outside of the form like that. All right, but then just stay inside. Makes for kind of a cool deal. All right, there you go.